That's becoming one of our favorite segments of the week. It's Larry Stendeback, right?
Yeah, how you doing, McGraw and Kelly?
Good to see you, Larry. You are with First Rule, and you were in the R&D department here at the Big
sir.
550 KTRS. We've joked about 3D printers. We joked that these mic flags that are on the mics that you see in news conferences that say KTRS, those were printed on a 3D printer.
They were. So the difference was instead of spending about $150 per mic flag, it costs about 15 cents.
Right. Okay. And so now you have here on set, this is the first generation or an older version of a 3D printer.
Correct. It's the one that if you went to Micro Center or you went out to this Amazon now, it'd be the one that you could probably get.
How much are these?
Well, that's the amazing thing. A couple of years ago, they were $50,000, $60,000. Now they're $2,000, or even they have a desktop one for starters that's only about $1,300.
Really?
Okay. So why does somebody need a 3D home printer?
You know, honestly, at the very moment right now, you probably don't. But it's a great learning tool for one thing. So for example, if I had a kid, I think I would get them one of the small ones because, you know, hey, you want to play with an action figure. Hey, you got to make your own.
Right.
You know, and so while you're doing that, you're learning about 3D modeling. You're learning about engineering. And how much fun is it that anything you create, you can just make?
Okay,
Right.
so this 3D printer you have, these, is it plastic?
It is. There's
Okay.
ABS or PLA plastic. It looks like weed eater wire, almost. Like
Yeah.
on your weed eater.
Yeah.
And it goes up and it's melted. And then it's actually called extrusion deposition is the type of printer here, where it just lays one layer at a time. So you can imagine if you had an apple and you cut an apple really thin, and then you reassembled the apple piece by piece, layer by layer,
Right.
you have the whole apple at the end.
Right.
That's essentially what these sort of 3D
What's
printers
the most
do.
interesting thing that you've made with the 3D printer?
Oh, you know, we've been printing our own drones, actually. So we print the whole body for film drones, and then we can wire up our own motors, our own technology within
What?
it. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Okay, so let's say that an object is the size of a baseball. Using this, how long would it take to print?
Assuming you have like a 15% infill and it's not pure plastic, I mean, it could take an hour to 2 hours.
Okay, so like a wiffle ball or something. Let's say
It'd
a
take a
wiffle ball.
while. It's
With
slow.
with an empty core, it'd be about what'd you say, half hour or so?
Well, about an hour to 2 hours,
Okay,
honestly.
all right.
not bad.
Now you're bringing us. We have video of the next generation 3D printer.
So it's you know a great example of how geeks think, because the new generation, there was these engineers at a company called Carbon 3D, and they were sitting around watching Terminator 2 one day, and they saw the liquid Terminator rise up out of the pool of liquid, and they go, can't we do that? And it turns out, yes, you can. So they've invented a new type of 3D printing method that they're calling continuous liquid interface production. Clip.
Okay, which is what?
Basically, if you can imagine a pool of resin or a pool of plastic,
Right.
and then essentially a platform raises from the top and pulls out an object out of the plastic.
It's almost like a hand going into a pool of liquid and then pulling it out, and as it pulls out, it creates the object.
Correct, an object forms. How this is actually done is that you have actually a very narrow bit of plastic in a pool, and a projector underneath it sends ultraviolet light up, and it shows the cross sections or whatever. You know, if you're cutting the apple into pieces at each section of the apple,
Right.
And when that ultraviolet light hits the plastic hardens, and so then it pulls up, and it's continually changing what it's projecting.
Now, for those who are listening on the radio, getting a very, very different view than those watching on the video side, it looks like the trough of liquid is deep because you're pulling out a small little Eiffel Tower. But in actuality, that bowl is as shallow as it is, and it's literally creating the Eiffel Tower as it pulls up. You're not pulling the Eiffel Tower. It's not a magic trick where the Eiffel Tower is below the water line.
Correct.
And you're pulling it up. You're actually inventing the Eiffel Tower as you pull it up.
Correct. And one of the major advantages of this, instead of it taking, you know, an hour to 2 hours to print that wiffle ball, it takes about 30 seconds. It takes about a minute.
With the new one.
With the new one. So it's literally about 100 times faster. And at that point, your initial question of who needs this changes a little bit in a couple of years. It goes from a neat idea for engineers or people learning about this sort of thing or prototyping to an appliance you have at your house. And when you're lazy like me and don't like to do, you know, the dishes, I can go up and say, hey, I need a plate and some silverware. And it just instantly makes me plate and silverware.
That would be such a guy thing to do too. I don't want to wash any more dishes. I'll just make some new ones.
Makes sense.
Now, it's not just plastic. 3D printers it's really whatever's in the cartridge, right?
Essentially, and it depends on the type of 3D printer. These here and the ones that we've just talked about are pretty much all plastic.
Okay.
They do have metal 3D printers, though. They're done with a slightly different method, a lot of the same logic, but slightly different method. And they have other different cartridges that you can actually plug into these. For example, there's different plastics that have like a carbon fiber bit in them, or they have actually some wood grain in the plastic, so it looks kind of smells like wood when you print something. It's a little bit interesting.
Is it true, Larry, from R&D here at the Big 550 KTRS, that right now today people could actually print a working gun?
If you had one of the industrial strength ones, you could out of something like the MakerBot into lots of small pieces. I know the Liberator model is the one that everyone freaked out about. It's the open source handgun,
Right.
That you have to then go out to Home Depot and buy a little nail as the firing pin. You could do it. I actually build guns myself too, as kind of a hobby. I can tell you that while I know how to 3D print, I know about guns. I don't think I would want to do that, because you see, if this messed up at all and it sealed a part of the gun, all of a sudden you have a pipe bomb, and I'm not sure I'd want
Right.
to be the one pulling the trigger.
Going forward, what's the future of this? I have read stories where it's not just printing a plate and a fork, but it's a doctor who needs this type of stint to go into this body. Or I want a nice shirt with a pink ribbon around the side. And so it's going to become a customized world where you would just print everything you need.
Absolutely. I think that's going to be, part of it. And I think you'll see the same technology, like you mentioned in medicine, actually applying to different industries, like construction, for example. We've seen some people in Asia actually build large format 3D printers that are printing houses, whole foundations of houses, all in one, all the walls all at once. So, I mean, that could definitely be a future that's not too distant.
A customized house.
They're literally printing a house.
Yeah, because they could do it in a day. That's what I heard. All the foundation, all of the walls, all in one go, and then they move the whole contraption over.
And the cartridge would be concrete or some
in that
type
case,
of...
it'd be concrete, most likely.
So they would some high industrial cost you $1 billion for the first one, and then nothing
Right.
nothing thereafter. Really
Boy.
Future's here.
This is
far out.
fascinating.
Larry Senneback is with us. He is with KTRS R&D. He's also with First Rule Film and Broadcast. Larry, we don't know what else you're going to bring us, but we love it every time you do. Thanks for coming
Thanks,
in.
guys.
8:30 here, Big 550 KTRS. Altair